Okay guys, so this is part 2 of the 5.2 video lesson. There are just 3 slides left in this video. These 3 slides are very important. It's really putting everything together that were in the first 7 slides. So here we have equation for the axis of symmetry. So let's focus on x equals p, keeping in mind that this is the x value of the vertex. Okay, so like on, the last slide, we saw that when trying to determine the axis of symmetry, that's always going to be the x value of the vertex, and with x equals p. Okay, down here we have looking at Q, so a vertical shift up or down. So it's this Q here that's going to tell you, sorry, I'm going to add the plus sign in there. It's this here that's going to tell you if it's shifting vertically up or down. So if you have Q greater than 0, so if you have a positive Q, it's going to move up. And if you have a Q less than 0, so a negative Q, then it's going to move vertically down. Here, so let's use a different color. The P is pertaining to the horizontal shift either right or left. So remember, this one's a little bit more difficult to remember. So it's really like the opposite. When P is greater than 0, we're going to move to the right. So another way to remember is whenever you have a negative or a subtraction sign, it's going to be moving to the right. And when P is less than 0, we're going to move to the left. So when you see this positive sign, you know to move to the left. Over here, it's the A value that tells you whether or not there is a vertical stretch, a vertical compression, or a vertical reflection in the x-axis. So keep in mind, when A is greater than 1, we have a vertical stretch. Okay, so that usually looks something like this. When A is greater than 0 but less than 1, then that is a compression, which usually looks a little bit fatter like that. And when we have a vertical reflection in the x-axis, that is when we have a negative A value, which means it opens down. Okay, so this is your page to come back to if you can't remember, oh, am I moving left or right, or am I moving up and down, or what value of vertex form or variable of vertex form am I looking to in terms of vertical shifts and horizontal shifts. Okay, so this next slide here, describe the transformations that were applied to the graph of y equals x squared to obtain each of the following. So we have y equals 2, x minus 3 squared plus 4. So we're going to go in order, and we're going to move this. Look at the A value first. So because this A value is greater than 1, we call that a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. What is the step pattern? Well, we know A is equal to 2, so it's really like saying 1 times A, 3 times A, 5 times A, which is going to give us 2, 6, 10. Now, we will look at this here. So the P value of vertex form is going to tell us the horizontal shift. So when we have x minus 3, that tells us that there's going to be a horizontal shift right 3. Okay, so that's something that you need to memorize. When there is a negative in the brackets, it's going to move to the right, and when there's a positive, it will move to the left. And lastly here, we have this positive 4 in the Q variable. That is going to tell us that there is a vertical shift, and because it's positive, we say up 4. Okay, let's do B. So we will start with A again. So in general, this negative is telling us that it opens down. Okay, and we have an A of negative 0.5. So because 0.5 is greater than 0 but less than 1, we call that a vertical compression. And if you're not remembering this, guys, go back to the summary page. By a factor of 0.5. Now, because it is negative 0.5, we have learned that if A is negative, there is also a reflection in the x-axis. Okay, so now let's look at this value here. So for P, we have positive 5 there. So when we have a positive inside the brackets, we need to memorize that 1, it's a horizontal shift. And when it's positive inside the brackets, we're going to shift left 5. And then lastly, this guy here is a vertical shift. And because it's negative, it's down 7. Okay, so this next question says match the graph to the equation. So the first thing that I would do is write whether or not the parabola opens up or down. So for A, we're going to say opens down because the A value out front here is negative. B, the A value is positive, so it's up. C is positive, up. D is negative, so down, and E is positive, so up. The next thing that is very important to do is to determine the vertex. So we know that the vertex is this value and this value. We've learned that so far. So remembering that the negative here is part of the vertex form. So the x value of the vertex is really positive 4, not negative 4. Okay, so we would find the graph, the parabola on the graph that has a vertex of 4 and 5. And if you look that up, this guy here is A. For B, our vertex is negative 1 because this is a positive here, which means that our x value of our vertex, our P, is actually the opposite, negative 1 and negative 5. So find that on the graph, and we have B right here. C, the vertex is negative 6, and because we don't have a value here, it's really plus 0. So find a vertex on the graph that is negative 6 and 0. This is C. D opens down. Our vertex is negative 8 and 1. This is D. And then E, our vertex is 7 and 3. And this guy is E. Okay, so we were able to match up the parabolas to the equation using the vertex, but please keep in mind that the P and Q values also tell us the horizontal and vertical shift. So y equals x squared has a vertex of 0, 0. So really that would be right here. So for example, A, we know is going to move to the right 4 units. And because the Q value is positive, it's going to move up 5 units. So if we were to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, there is our vertex of A. Okay, so please keep in mind that there's also that method as well. Okay, in our last slide here, write the equation for a parabola that satisfies the following conditions. So we're used to being given the equation and then writing down, okay, this is a vertical shift up or a horizontal shift right. Now they are going to give us the scenario and we are going to come up with the equation for it. So it says vertically stretched by a factor of 6. So right away we know that it needs to be in vertex form. Okay, and when it says vertically stretched by a factor of 6, if you need to go back to the summary page, then do that. But when talking about vertically stretched or compressed, we're talking about the A value. So far we know y equals 6, because that's where the A is, it's the first value. And then it says reflected in the x-axis. I'm just going to put A here. So if you go back to the summary page, if a parabola is reflected in the x-axis, then that tells us that the A value is negative. Okay, and then it says in shifted left 7 units. Okay, so that means that we should, if it's shifted left 7 units, then we should have a plus sign in the brackets. And squared. And it doesn't say anything about a vertical shift, so we actually don't have a Q. It's really just 0. Okay. Example 4, graph each using vertex and step pattern. So y equals 3, x minus 6 squared minus 9. So let's just do a quick review. If it's x minus 6, that means that we're moving to the right 6. And if it's subtract 9, then we're moving down. Okay? Keep in mind, the A value is positive, so I'm going to put here, opens up. Okay, so I'll say right because of the negative 6, down because of the negative 9, and opens up because of the positive 3. Okay, so graph using vertex and step pattern. Well, right away, what's our vertex? You'll look to the P and Q values, and we know that P is positive 6. Don't let that negative confuse you. Remember, it's opposite. And negative 9. The step pattern, well, A is 3. So we have to do 1 times 3, 3 times 3, 5 times 3. And we get 3, 9, and 15. So we're going to graph that. We'll start with our vertex. So plot your point for 6 and negative 9. And then we're going to use the step pattern to get the rest of our parabola, the rest of our points. So we're going to go over 1, up 3, over 1, up 9. Let me just make sure here. Up 9. Oops. Erase that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oops. Over 1, up 3. Over 1, up 3. Over 1, up 9. Okay, we can't go over 1, up 15 because we don't have enough space on our graph. So that is A. Now let's do B. Y equals negative x minus 5 squared plus 9. So again, let's just do some quick review. We know that since the A value is negative, it's going to open down. X plus 5, which means that we are going to move to the left 5 units plus 6. That means that we're going to vertically shift.
Mr. O'Sullivan, please call the main office. Mr. O'Sullivan, call the main office, please.
Up 6 units. Okay, so let's get our vertex. So P and Q, we know that this is P, this is Q. If there is a plus in front of it, we know that was really negative, right? Because it's opposite. And the step pattern, our A value is -4, so it's really like 1 times -4, 3 times -4, 5 times -4, and we get -4, -12, -20. So let's plot our vertex, -5 and 6. And then let's go over 1, down 4. Over 1, down 12. That's going to bring us all the way down here. Over 1, down 4. Over 1, down 12. And there we go. And that there is B. Okay, and that's the ending. So really, I know this was a long lesson, but it really is the last 3 slides that really sums everything up. Okay, remember that summary slide is a really good place to look to if we're forgetting. You know, whether it's P or Q, that tells us vertical or horizontal shift. Okay, and the homework is right down here.